He pulled her closer to himself, wrapping his hand tightly around her waist. I am a vessel of God, and if you obey me, you've obeyed God himself. Pastor Adetola, aka K Daddy Possibilities, said to Fiyin. The church auditorium was packed to capacity, the air thick with the sounds of prayer, worship, and the rustling of offering envelopes. Daddy Possibilities stood at the pulpit, radiating authority and charisma as he wiped his brow with a white handkerchief. This is the hour of revelation, he thundered into the microphone. The Spirit of God is moving mightily in this place. The crowd erupted in a chorus of Amen and Hallelujah. Fiyin sat near the middle row, her hands clasped tightly on her lap. Her mind was elsewhere, clouded by confusion and inner conflict. She could barely focus on the fiery prayers or the pastor's dramatic declarations. Daddy Possibility's voice dropped to a lower, more deliberate tone, signaling that a prophecy was about to begin. The Lord is revealing something urgent, he said, scanning the congregation. There is a young woman here today, and the enemy is after your life. The congregation collectively held their breath, waiting for the revelation. Daddy Possibility's eyes landed on a richly dressed young lady seated in the front row. She wore a glittering gold gown, her designer bag perched elegantly on her lap. She certainly wasn't a wanderer. You, my daughter, he said, pointing at her. Please rise. The young lady stood, her face a mix of curiosity and fear. The Lord has shown me something about you, Daddy Possibilities continued. There is a group of friends around you, friends who pretend to love you, but they are plotting against you. One of them plans to poison your food. The Lord has revealed this to me because he wants to save you. The woman gasped, her hands flying to her chest. The congregation murmured in awe, some clapping and shouting praises. Daddy Possibilities continued with vivid details about the plot, naming locations and even describing one of the supposed friends. In the midst of the uproar, Fiyin's gaze remained fixed on Daddy Possibilities. Her emotions churned inside her, a confusing cocktail of disbelief, doubt, and fear. Was this really the man of God her mother revered so much? Could someone so connected to the divine also be the man who had been preying on her? Her eyes flicked to Colonel, who sat a few rows behind her, his arms crossed and his face unreadable. She knew he had been keeping a watchful eye on her, though she had avoided him since their last conversation. The prophecy concluded with Daddy Possibilities declaring a special prayer for the young lady's protection. The congregation erupted into wild applause, shouting praises of Daddy Possibilities, the prophet of our time. After the service, Fietten's mother grabbed her arm. "Did you see how God is using Daddy Possibilities?" she exclaimed. "That prophecy was so detailed. Truly, he is a man of God." Fiyin forced a weak smile, nodding silently. She didn't trust her voice to hold steady enough for a reply. As the congregation filed out, Fiyin felt a familiar sense of dread creep over her. She knew what was coming. True to form, Daddy Possibilities had sent her a subtle signal after the service, a fleeting glance that told her he wanted to see her. When her mother got caught up in a conversation with some churchwomen, Fiyin used the opportunity to slip away toward Daddy Possibilities' office. Her heart pounded in her chest as she approached the familiar frosted glass door. She hesitated for a moment before knocking lightly. "Come in, my dear," his voice called from inside. Fiyin stepped into the office, closing the door behind her. Daddy Possibilities was seated at his desk, his ever-present serene smile plastered on his face. "Ah, Fiyinta," he said warmly, gesturing for her to sit. "You look lovely today." Fiyin lowered herself into the chair across from him, her hands clasped tightly in her lap. She didn't respond to his compliment, her eyes fixed on the edge of his desk. "You seemed quiet during the service," he observed, leaning forward slightly. "Is everything all right?" "Fine, sir," Fiyin replied, her voice barely above a whisper. Daddy Possibilities nodded, his smile never wavering. Good. I hope you were blessed by the service today. Did you see how the Lord revealed the plans of the enemy? Vienne nodded weakly. She didn't trust herself to say anything more. He stood up, moving around the desk to sit on the edge closest to her. Vienne stiffened as he reached out to touch her shoulder. "My dear, you've been such a blessing to this ministry," he said softly. "The Lord has great plans for you, and I'm here to guide you on that path." Vienne didn't respond, her mind racing as his hand slid from her shoulder to her arm, and went further to her lips as he pulled her closely. "You've become so special to me," he continued, his tone more intimate. "I see greatness in you, and I want to make sure you reach your full potential." Vienne stared at her lap, her throat dry and her pulse pounding in her ears. "I'll call you later tonight," he said, pulling her gently to her feet. "We'll meet in our usual spot." Vienne nodded automatically, her body moving on autopilot as he ushered her toward the door. "Be a good girl," he said. Vienne left the office feeling numb, her thoughts swirling in a chaotic mess. She didn't understand how a man who spoke with such conviction and authority about God could also behave this way. As she walked back to find her mother, she spotted Kunle standing near the church entrance, his eyes fixed on her. She quickly looked away, her guilt and shame bubbling to the surface. She didn't know how much longer she could keep pretending that everything was fine, but for now, she would continue to play along. The evening air was calm as Vienne prepared to leave the house. She stood in front of the mirror in her room, adjusting her blouse nervously. Her reflection stared back at her, a mixture of unease and resignation. She told herself that everything was fine. This was what Daddy Possibilities had asked for, and she couldn't disappoint him. She opened her door to find her mother sitting in the living room scrolling through her phone. Vienne swallowed hard and approached her cautiously. "Mummy, I'm heading to church," she said, forcing a smile. "Daddy Possibilities has called for a special prayer session." Her mother looked up, her expression brightening immediately. "Ah, wonderful. That man of God is truly a blessing. Make sure you focus and receive the anointing, my dear." "Yes, Mummy," Vienne said, avoiding her mother's eyes. As Vienne stepped out of the house, her mother went back to her phone, unaware of the storm brewing beneath the surface. She had just settled deeper into the couch when a knock sounded at the door. "Who could that be?" she muttered, standing up and heading to the door. When she opened it, she was surprised to see a young man standing there, neatly dressed in a crisp shirt and trousers. His face was serious but polite, his eyes carrying a weight of urgency. "Good evening, Mom," the man said, bowing slightly. "My name is Kunle. I hope I'm not disturbing you." "Good evening," Vienn's mother replied, her brows furrowing. "No, you're not disturbing me. Please, come in." Kunle stepped into the living room, taking a seat on the edge of the couch when she offered him one. "Can I get you some water?" she asked, still trying to place the young man in her mind. "No, thank you, Ma. I won't take much of your time," Kunle said, his tone measured and deliberate. "So, what brings you here? Do I know you?" Kunle shook his head. "No, Ma. You don't know me personally, but I know your daughter Fionn." At the mention of Vienn's name, her mother's face softened, though her curiosity deepened. "Ooh, Vienne, is she in some kind of trouble?" Kunle hesitated, choosing his words carefully. "Ma, I came here because I'm very concerned about something. It's about Vienne and Daddy Possibilities." Vienn's mother's eyes widened slightly, and she immediately sat up straighter. "What do you mean? What about Daddy Possibilities?" Colonel took a deep breath, his hands clasped tightly in his lap. "Ma, please don't misunderstand me. I know Daddy Possibilities is someone you trust deeply. He's a man of God, and many people hold him in high regard. But I've noticed certain things that have made me very worried about his relationship with Vier." Her mother's face hardened slightly, her loyalty to the pastor flaring up. "What exactly are you trying to say? Daddy Possibilities is a holy man. He has no reason to be involved in anything inappropriate." "I understand how this sounds, Ma," Colonel said quickly, "and I'm not asking you to believe me immediately, but I've been observing for some time now. Fionn has been acting differently, and I've noticed that she's been spending a lot of private time with Daddy Possibilities. Ma, I think something might be happening. Something that isn't right. Her mother's expression wavered. She wanted to dismiss Kunle outright, to defend the pastor she had come to see as a spiritual leader and mentor, but the fact that it involved her daughter gave her pause. "You're accusing a man of God without proof," she said, her voice trembling slightly. "Do you know what you're saying? This is a serious matter." Kunle nodded. "I know, Mum. That's why I didn't want to come here until I was sure. I wouldn't accuse him without reason. I care about Fionn, and I don't want her to get hurt. All I'm asking is that you look into it. Watch closely, talk to her if you can. If I'm wrong, then I'll apologize. What exactly do you think is happening?" she asked cautiously. Kunle hesitated for a moment, then said, "I think Daddy Possibilities is taking advantage of Fionn. I don't know how far it's gone, but from what I've seen, I'm almost certain he's manipulating her. She's young and vulnerable, and he's using his position as a pastor to get close to her." Her mother's hands trembled slightly as she processed his words. The thought of her beloved pastor doing something so vile was almost too much to bear. But she couldn't ignore the possibility, not when it came to her daughter. "Do you have any proof?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Kunle shook his head. "Not yet, Ma. That's why I came to you. I need your help to confirm what's really happening. Fionn might not want to talk to me about it, but maybe she'll open up to you." Her mother sighed heavily, rubbing her temples. This is a lot to take in. I don't know what to think." Kunle reached into his pocket and pulled out a small card, handing it to her. "My, I understand how difficult this must be. I don't expect you to make any decisions right now, but please, keep an eye on Fionn. If you notice anything or if you need someone to talk to, call me. I just want to make sure she's safe." As Kunle left the house, Fiona's mother sat on the couch, staring at the card in her hand. Her mind was a whirlwind of emotions: shock, disbelief, fear, and a gnawing sense of doubt. She wanted to trust Daddy Possibilities, but her instincts as a mother refused to let her dismiss Kunle's warning completely. She glanced at the clock, wondering where Fionn was at that moment. A pang of unease settled in her chest, and for the first time she began to question the man she had placed so much faith in. It was late at night, and Fionn's mother, Mrs. Adiola, lay on her bed, tossing and turning. Kunle's visit earlier in the day had planted a seed of doubt in her mind, one that was growing with every passing hour. She had spent years trusting Daddy Possibilities as her spiritual leader, but the thought that he might be involved in something inappropriate with her daughter gnawed at her. The more she tried to push the thought away, the stronger it came back. She couldn't shake the look in Kunle's eyes when he spoke about his suspicions, or the way Fionn had seemed distant and uneasy lately. Finally, unable to take it anymore, she got out of bed and began pacing the room. She needed answers, but how could she get them without confronting Fionn directly? Then an idea struck her. She could check Fionn's phone. Surely there would be some clues there. She hesitated at first. Going through her daughter's phone felt like a betrayal of trust, but this was bigger than trust. It was about her daughter's safety. Her resolve hardened, and she made up her mind. "Fionn," she called out, standing at the door of her room. "Yes, Mummy," Fionn responded from her own room. "Please, come here. My phone is acting up, and I need to browse something quickly. Let me use your phone." Fionn appeared at the door a moment later, holding her phone. She handed it over without hesitation. "Here you go, Mummy. I'll be in my room if you need anything." "Thank you, my dear," her mother said, trying to keep her tone casual. The moment Fionn left, Mrs. Aliola sat down and unlocked the phone. She navigated to the WhatsApp app and began scrolling through Fionn's contacts. Her heart raced as she skimmed the list of saved numbers. Then she saw it. A contact saved as Daddy Possibilities. The love emoji at the end of the name made her sit up straighter. Her instinct screamed that something was wrong. She clicked on the contact, but to her dismay, the conversation was empty. The chat history had been deleted. Mrs. Adeola frowned, her suspicion deepening. Why would Fian delete her messages with the pastor? Her hands trembled slightly as she stared at the contact. The doubt in her mind was now overshadowed by alarm. She needed to know more. Taking a deep breath, she decided to call the number. She pressed the call button, her heart pounding loudly in her chest. The phone rang for a few seconds before a voice answered. "Hello, baby," a deep, familiar voice said warmly from the other end. Mrs. Adeola's breath caught in her throat. It was unmistakably Daddy Possibilities. She stared at the phone in shock, unable to speak. The casual intimacy in his voice confirmed her worst fears. Quickly, she ended the call and deleted the call history, her hands moving frantically. She placed the phone on the table and stared into space, her mind racing. It was true. Kunle had been right all along. The pastor she had trusted with her family, the man she revered as a spiritual father, was calling her daughter baby. A wave of emotions crashed over her. Anger, disbelief, shame, and guilt. How had she not seen this coming? How had she missed the signs? She had pushed Fian to trust and obey this man, and now she realized she might have been sending her daughter into harm's way. For a few minutes, she sat frozen, staring at the phone. Then, her anger began to boil. She wanted to storm into Fian's room and confront her. She wanted to march to the church and expose Daddy Possibilities for the fraud he was. But she stopped herself. Kunle's words echoed in her mind. "Tread with caution. Don't alert Fian or anyone else just yet. We need to be careful." She took a deep breath and tried to calm herself. Acting impulsively would only make things worse. She needed to think carefully about her next move. She picked up the phone again and scrolled through Fian's other contacts and messages. But apart from the suspicious contact with Daddy Possibilities, everything else seemed normal. Satisfied that she had gathered enough for now, she locked the phone and called out to Fian. "Fian, come and take your phone," she said, her voice steady. Fian entered the room, her expression calm and unsuspecting. "Did you find what you were looking for, Mummy?" "Yes, I did, thank you," her mother replied, handing the phone back. "All right, good night," Fian said, heading back to her room. "Good night, my dear," her mother responded, watching her leave. Once Fian was gone, Mrs. Adeola sat on her bed, her mind working furiously. She couldn't go to sleep now. She needed to figure out what to do next. Should she confront Fian? Should she call Kunle and tell him what she had found? Or should she take this information directly to the church elders? She decided to start with Kunle. He had been the one to warn her, and he seemed to know more about the situation. She picked up her own phone and dialed his number. "Hello, Ma," Kunle answered, his voice cautious. "Kunle," she said, her voice trembling slightly. "You were right. I just checked Fian's phone and there's something very wrong. She has Daddy Possibilities' number saved with a love emoji, and when I called the number, he called her baby." Mrs. Adeola nodded, even though he couldn't see her. "You're right. But what do we do now? Let's meet tomorrow, Ma. I'll come to your house and we can discuss a plan. Please try to stay calm. We'll handle this." After ending the call, Mrs. Adeola sat back and sighed deeply. She felt a small sense of relief, knowing she wasn't facing this alone. But as she lay down to try and rest, her mind kept replaying the voice on the phone, and the realization that she had trusted a man who had betrayed that trust in the worst possible way. The next morning, the cafe was quiet and serene, a stark contrast to the chaos swirling in Mrs. Adeola's mind. Kunle was already seated when she arrived, his face a mask of determination. "Good morning, Ma," he greeted, rising to pull out a chair for her. "Good morning, Kunle," she replied, sitting down and clasping her hands tightly. "Thank you for meeting me." Kunle nodded. "Ma, we have to handle this wisely. If Daddy Possibilities finds out we're onto him, he could become more dangerous." "I agree," Mrs. Adeola said, her voice firm. "What do we do next?" Kunle leaned forward. "We need Fian to open up about everything. If she can tell you the full truth, it will be easier for us to gather evidence. Once we have solid proof, we can report him to the authorities." Mrs. Adeola sighed heavily. I'm afraid she won't talk to me. She might be too scared or ashamed to admit what's been happening. That's why you'll need to use her trust in you as her mother, Kunlaf said gently. Don't accuse her. Just let her know you're on her side. They continued discussing the details, and by the time they parted ways, they had a plan. Kunle would reach out to Tunde, a mutual friend with a knack for technology, to help gather any additional evidence, while Mrs. Adiola would focus on getting Fiayin to confess. That evening, as the sun set and the house grew quiet, Mrs. Adiola sat in her room, rehearsing what she would say to Fiyin. She decided to lean on a classic African mother strategy, invoking the power of dreams. Fiyin, she called, her voice firm but calm. Fiyin appeared in the doorway moments later. Yes, Mummy? Come in, her mother said, patting the edge of the bed. Sit down, I need to talk to you. Fiyin hesitated, sensing the serious tone in her mother's voice. Slowly she sat down. Bien, her mother began, her face etched with concern. I had a dream last night, a troubling dream. In this dream I saw you struggling, carrying a heavy burden, but you wouldn't let me help you. I woke up with such a heavy heart. Fiyin's eyes widened slightly, and she shifted uncomfortably. Yeah, her mother continued, taking Fiyamin's hand in hers. I don't know what this burden is, but as your mother, I can feel that something is not right. If there's anything you're hiding, anything at all, please tell me. I promise I won't judge you. I just want to help. Fiyin's lower lip trembled, and tears began to pool in her eyes. Mummy, she started, her voice breaking. Go on, my child, her mother urged, squeezing her hand. I'm so sorry, Mummy, Fiyin sobbed, the floodgates finally opening. I've been so scared to tell you, but it's Daddy Possibilities. He's been doing things to me, things I didn't want. At first I resisted, but he said if I told anyone our family would be cursed. I didn't know what to do. As Fiyin poured out her heart, detailing everything that had happened, the prayers, the threats, the meetings in hotels, her mother's heart shattered. Tears streamed down her face as she pulled her daughter into a tight embrace. My baby, she wept, rocking Fiyin gently. I am so sorry. I should have protected you. I should have seen the signs. Please forgive me. Fiyin clung to her mother, sobbing into her shoulder. I didn't know who to turn to, Mummy. I was so scared. You've done the right thing by telling me, her mother said, her voice trembling with emotion. We will fix this. I promise you, we will make this right. The following day, with Tunde's help, they began gathering evidence. Tunde was a tech-savvy young man who understood how to retrieve deleted messages and record conversations discreetly. He managed to recover a few incriminating messages from Fiyin's phone and devised a plan to capture more evidence in real time. They decided to set up a meeting between Fiyin and Daddy Possibilities, during which Tunde would discreetly record their conversation. Fiyin was reluctant at first, but with her mother's encouragement, she agreed. The plan worked. Tunde captured audio of Daddy Possibilities making inappropriate comments and discussing their secret meetings. With this damning evidence in hand, they took their case to the police. It was a Sunday morning and the church was packed for the weekly service. Daddy Possibility stood at the pulpit, preaching with his usual charisma, oblivious to what was about to happen. Halfway through the sermon, a group of police officers entered the church, their presence causing a stir among the congregation. Daddy Possibilities, one of the officers called out, stepping forward. You are under arrest for sexual assault and abuse of authority. The church erupted in gasps and murmurs as the officers approached the pulpit. Daddy Possibilities attempted to maintain his composure, raising his hands in mock innocence. This is a mistake, he exclaimed. I am a man of God. Who dares to accuse me? At that moment, Mrs. Rauchel, the mother of the late Deborah, stepped forward from the congregation. Her face was a mask of grief and determination as she held up a notebook. This, she said, her voice shaking, is my daughter Deborah's journal. Before she took her own life, she wrote about how you manipulated and violated her. You destroyed my daughter. The congregation fell silent, the weight of her words hanging heavy in the air. The officers didn't hesitate. They handcuffed Daddy Possibilities and led him out of the church as the stunned congregation looked on. In the weeks that followed, Daddy Possibilities was tried and sentenced to prison. His downfall sent shockwaves through the community, prompting many parents to have open conversations with their children about abuse and the importance of speaking out. For Phelan and her mother, the road to healing was long, but they faced it together, stronger than ever. And though the scars of the past could never be erased, they found solace in knowing that justice had been served. Thank you for watching this video. Please like, comment, and subscribe for more.